Welcome into another season prediction show. Today we're talking about the West Virginia Mountaineers. So West Virginia is coming off of a 6-7 season. They went 4-5 in the Big 12 a year ago, and this is a big year for Neal Brown. This is an opportunity for him to show that this group is trending in the right direction, or honestly to show that maybe this isn't going to work out. Because I think that's kind of the point that we're at. With Neal Brown at West Virginia. And I've been a huge believer in him since the moment he got there. But if you kind of put it all together, it's been bad quarterback play, injuries. It just really has not shaped up the way that I think many people expected when he first got to Morgantown. So let's start with their offense. They bring in Graham Harrell, which is a great addition as the offensive coordinator. Neal Brown had great things to say about him at Big 12 Media Days. And then they also bring in JT Daniels, the transfer from Georgia to be their quarterback. He's going to replace Jarret Doege, which I think most West Virginia fans would say, thank goodness. I know people outside of Morgantown have been talking about Jarret Doege as kind of more of a hindrance than a positive for them. Now, I know he's given them great games, but I think this is a clear upgrade in talent with JT Daniels. Now, I would also say JT Daniels has a high ceiling, but I think his floor is also very low, and you also have to take that into consideration. He's had a lot of injuries and really hasn't been able to put consistent production on tape over the course of his entire career. And then, of course, last year he got benched for Stetson Bennett there at Georgia, which, Bennett actually ended up being a pretty good quarterback. So take that for what it's worth. At the running back position, Tony Mathis Jr., Justin Johnson, I think those are two guys who could be pretty talented for them. I think they need to run the ball better. They have not ran the ball well over the past few years, and that's kind of a dilemma for them. It really has affected them. It's put a lot of pressure on their quarterback. And so I think this year they're going to try to run it more, but also realize they have Graham Harrell as their OC. They're going to throw the ball, rely on passing the football. But I think in situations where they absolutely have to run the ball, can they get a yard? Are they going to be able to get 2 yards on third down running the football and surprising the defense? That I don't know about, but I think they need to get to that point this season if they want to reach their ceiling. At wide receiver, Bryce Ford-Wheaton's back. Sam James is back. I like those two, kind of proven commodity type guys. But I think the guy who's kind of slept on, who people are really going to get to know outside of Morgantown, is Caden Prather. He's a guy who I really liked coming out of high school. I think he's going to be a guy who takes a nice step in the right direction and becomes maybe not the go-to guy for JT Daniels, but definitely a huge part of their offense. This is where things also get interesting. They returned all 5 of their offensive linemen from a year ago, including 2 more depth guys who played at times last year due to injury, but they weren't great. So, is this a group that just has a lot of veterans returning, but they aren't very good? Or is this a group that's going to take a step in the right direction? I tend to think it's probably somewhere in the middle. I think the talent's okay, but I do think they will take a step forward, being more veteran-oriented. I think they're going to run the ball a little bit better, protect the quarterback better. And I think if they can do those 2 things, it will really help this offense find a little bit more consistency throughout the season. Moving on to defense, I felt like this was probably one of the more underrated comments from Big 12 Media Days, at least from Neal Brown, and that he thought that this could be the best defense they've ever had in Morgantown. And he sounded pretty confident in that. Now, let's not forget a few years ago, they were a top 20 defense. So let's say they're better than that. Let's say they're top 15 this year, and that puts them probably right around they're giving up 19 points a game. If they're able to do that, they're going to beat a lot of teams this upcoming year. Main reasons why. On the defensive line, they have Dante Stills, Jared Bartlett, and Taj Alston anchoring up front. That's a pretty good unit right there. I like what they've done up front. They've always been good on the defensive line. It's really been problems in the secondary and at linebacker at times that have held them back, it feels like, over the past few years. And I think Neal Brown kind of said that, they need to get more athletic on the back end in the secondary, and that will allow them to bring more blitzes, create more pressure if they're actually able to hold up on the back end. And because of that, they went out and added a ton of defensive backs. So they get Charles Woods back, which is great. He's a preseason All Big 12 guy. He's going to be very good on one side of the field at cornerback. But then they just went out and just added as many transfers as they possibly could. from Marcus Floyd to Wesley McCormick to Rashad Ajayi. I mean, they went out and added a ton of guys back there to try to provide some sort of upgrade there while also being good culture fits. I think that was big for Neil Brown as well with all the guys that they added out of the transfer portal. At linebacker, I really like their group. You look at Lance Dixon coming back. They got the Syracuse linebacker transfer in Lee Kaponga. They got North Dakota State University transfer Jasir Cox, who will probably play more of a nickelback role. He's fast. He's strong. He seems like a guy who could be able to get after the quarterback as well, which is going to be pretty key for them. And then I also like Miami transfer linebacker Tyreek Austin Cave. He was a big-time prospect coming out of high school. Things didn't work out at Miami. He's back, and I'm wondering if he can maybe carve out a role in the linebacker core as well. Very, very good player. Now, most times I'm not going to bring up special teams at all when I do these predictions, but West Virginia does have an all Big 12 kicker in Casey Legback. I also really just like his name. It's very perfect for a kicker. And so I think Casey is going to be, again, one of the best kickers in the conference and should give them a very nice advantage there as well. So let's look at kind of their schedule here. So the wins that I see, I think they're going to win one of Pitt or Virginia Tech. I don't know that I can tell you which one, but I think they're going to find a way to get one of them. I'm probably leaning more towards them beating Pitt this year, even though I think that's more of a solidified program. I just have a hunch that they're going to be able to stop the run in that game, which should bode really well against a Pitt team that's definitely going to try to get back to defense and running the football. I have them beating Kansas, Towson, at Texas Tech, and TCU. That gives them 5 wins. Okay, those are the 5 wins that I see on their schedule that I feel pretty good about. Losses, there's only one that I'm absolutely like, they're going to lose this game. It's at Oklahoma State. Outside of that, it's a bunch of close calls that I think could probably go either way. I mentioned the at Pitt, at Virginia Tech game. Like I said, I think they're going to win one and lose one of those, but it should be a very close one and one they can certainly compete in. At Texas, that should be another close game. Baylor, at Iowa State, Oklahoma, and Kansas State. I'd be lying if I said I thought they were going to win all of these games because I definitely don't see that happening. I don't see that in the range of outcomes. But if I look on here and go, okay, they get Kansas State at home. I think they can win that game. I think they can go to Iowa State and probably steal that one, or to Texas and steal that one. I also think they get Baylor on a Thursday night at home. I think that could be a sneaky trap game for the Bears and another one that West Virginia could win. They also get Oklahoma at home. I mean, it's pretty favorable. Now, you're playing some of the best teams in the conference at home, but you get a bunch of opportunities to go out and get a win against one of those upper echelon teams, and I think they're going to find a way to win a couple of these games on their schedule, and currently their over-under is 5.5. This is one of my favorite bets in the Big 12 and one of my favorite bets in the entire nation, to be honest, because 5.5 is very low. If you go under that, Neil Brown is getting fired, most likely. And if you go over that, you've really met expectations when you have a non-conference schedule that features road trips to Pitt and Virginia Tech. So I think that's a great outcome for this West Virginia team. I actually am leaning more towards them going 7-5, which puts me clearly on the over this season for the Mountaineers. And that means I'm far more leaning towards at least 6-6, 7-5 than I am a 5-7 season for the West Virginia Mountaineers this year. I'm putting a lot of trust in Neil Brown, but I think he's going to be able to get the job done this season. So that's it for this week on season predictions. I might have one more episode later in the week predicting another team, but thanks for listening on the West Virginia Mountaineers.